Hello, hi, hey yo, sup, all you dudes and dudettes. My name is Ginator84, and we're back in the thick of award season. Predictions are being made, the discourse is as insufferable as ever, and once again, it's time for me to share my thoughts on the contenders for the Best Picture Oscar. It's quite an interesting bunch this year, so let's just get straight to it.
The 10 films nominated for Best Picture are...
Bugonia.
And start with a bang. I liked Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness, but Bugonia is the first Yorgos Lanthimos film I've properly gotten into. It felt like if Misery had been told from the perspective of the captors that eventually reveals itself to be a giant, harrowing what-if joke, one I won't spoil, but suffice to say I found the build-up to the punchline to be very compelling, unpredictable, and incredibly suspenseful. The bizarre, heightened style and Emma Stone's performance give just enough credence to the possibility she may actually be an alien that it kept me guessing right up until the very end. I'm very happy she got the nomination, and I also think one for Jesse Plemons wouldn't have gone amiss either. I'm also happy the music got recognized. It made this claustrophobic thriller feel gigantic in scale in such an effective and overwhelming way. It's not gonna win anything, but I'm very happy that it got the nod because it was one of my favorites from last year.
F1.
I mean, look, I enjoyed this movie, but Best Picture? But anyway, I had a good time watching this to escape from a heatwave in the summer. The racing scenes are incredibly well done and great to experience on the big screen, and Brad Pitt gives an effortlessly charismatic, proper movie star performance. I did find it too long and a bit repetitive, plus the whole romance subplot felt very unnecessary, and it's hard not to compare it to Top Gun Maverick, which was a much more exciting and characterful film. So yeah, a fun, solid blockbuster, but I really wasn't expecting it to get into Best Picture.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
The Oscars have really taken a liking to Guillermo del Toro's work these last few years, haven't they? And fair enough, I like everything I've seen from him, and the worlds he creates are always pretty spectacular, although this does suffer from the unappealing Netflix lighting, surprisingly enough. I'm just never fully enraptured by the films overall. Frankenstein is way too long and takes a very long time to really get going, but once the creature is created, I did get into it quite a bit. It was interesting for me to see a serious version of the story only being familiar with the Mel Brooks version. One moment of violence got me to say, Jesus fucking Christ, out loud to myself, and most of all, I found the performances from Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi very engaging. Elordi especially really disappears behind the makeup, and the evolution of how he carries himself is really good to watch. So overall, I am glad the nomination gave me the incentive to check this one out. And it wound up giving me an itch to revisit The Shape of Water I've never had before, so, there's also that. That's a very good movie, but it's still mad to think that's actually a Best Picture winner.
Hamnet.
Overall, I didn't like this movie, but it still got me choked up at the very end, which does count for something. But mostly, this was the movie where I finally thought to myself, why do I bother with award season? I'm not a period piece fan, I know I'm not a period piece fan, yet I saw it anyway because I knew it would get nominated. I struggled to connect with the slow pace, lack of character development, and the oldie English way everyone spoke, so I was pretty bored for most of it. But it is hard not to be moved by the heavier stuff in the back half. As someone who really struggles with the idea of death and processing death, the very last moment did really get to me, and in spite of everything, I was glad to have seen the film to experience that moment. Yet I can't say it reshaped the way I felt about it overall. It's this year's Complete Unknown and Conclave. I can see it's a well-made production, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Marty Supreme.
The first vampire movie here I liked, but was disappointed not to have loved given the buzz surrounding it. I rewatched Uncut Gems after seeing this, which is a movie I really like with a very consistent sense of momentum and chaotic energy. Any bits of those in Marty Supreme were my favourite parts, along with its excellent score, giving this 50-set film an 80s sound, as well as an ensemble filled with a lot more unique, interesting faces compared to a lot of movies nowadays. This is definitely a strong pick for the first casting Oscar. But old Timmy Chalamet is very much the star of the show, and he is very good in it. He gets to be very funny, charming, at times unlikable and overly cocky, culminating in a very powerful moment of catharsis and emotional release. And unrelated to the film's content, the fact there were a lot more younger people at my screening than I usually see, I do think has solidified him as a movie star. I found the film got much less engaging once it became more episodic back in New York. The schemes are pretty creative, but the way they were presented lacked that momentum and energy for me, so I did find myself getting a little antsy. And while the ping pong scenes were very well done, I didn't find the final one as exhilarating as some others have. It's a very good movie that personally didn't wow me, but I probably will rewatch it at home at some point.
One battle after another.
As a massive fan of Paul Thomas Anderson, I'm thrilled this looks to be the project he's cemented Oscar's glory for with adapted screenplay at the very least. I mean, it should get it just for
Semen Demon.
Picture and director also seem very likely, but not entirely set in stone. I mean, surely he's gonna win for directing, and it wouldn't just be a career win. It'd be for the propulsive momentum the first act flies by with, the ingenuity with which he makes a simple car chase feel like a roller coaster ride, and personally, for the absolute high the middle stretch gave me on first viewing. That was the first time in a long time a film completely swept me up and turned off my analytical brain, where it seemed like the events were unfolding in front of me in real time, the cinematography and score aiding this by seeming completely off the cuff, and the hilarity and tension of the story, and especially the performances, were absolutely enthralling. This has quickly become one of my favourite Leonardo DiCaprio roles. The capability he shows early on makes his bumbling paranoia later on so much funnier, and Sean Penn as this frighteningly powerful man-child perpetually uncomfortable in his own skin. It felt like he wasn't the frontrunner and supporting actor for a while, but after recent wins and a rewatch, I'm surprised it was ever in doubt. I mean, I could happily go on, but as I'll be talking about this in another video, hopefully very soon, I'll save more thoughts for then. But suffice to say, One Battle After Another is tied with Nope as my favourite film of the 2020s so far.
The Secret Agent.
I went into this expecting a thriller, but it's more of a slow burn drama with some thriller elements. And look, maybe I'll lose some cinephile cred for this admission, but this style of pacing where the majority of the film feels like a middle act doesn't fully vibe with me, and I really felt the length of this. But my struggling with the pacing is purely a personal issue. This is a very solid piece of work that, for the most part, I enjoyed quite a bit, especially when it picked up in the second half. The period detail is engaging, there's a lot of very interesting, well done scenes throughout, and I particularly liked the storyline about the sensationalism of the hairy leg story, especially in that one scene. Oh my god, what the hell was that?
Sentimental Value.
The dynamic between the director and the actress and the director's family, along with the personal history of the house, were the most interesting parts of it, and I wish that had been more at the forefront, as the other strands weren't quite as engaging for me. I also found the cuts to black a bit distracting, where just going to the next scene would have done fine, and I did miss the creativity that could be found in Joachim Trier's previous film, The Worst Person in the World. But all the characters were very interesting and well acted, there's a couple of very funny bits, and it builds towards a really good ending. So overall, I liked this movie.
Sinners.
Well, it was nice of them to finally nominate Delroy Lindo for To Five Bloods. As I alluded to, I walked out of Sinners having enjoyed myself, but very bummed out I hadn't loved it after the rave reactions got me excited to see it. When I rewatched it at home some months later, I felt a lot more strongly about the stuff I loved and the stuff that prevents me from fully embracing its whole. For starters, I find the twin thing distracting. I think Mickey 17 and Robert Pattinson did the dual role thing a lot more seamlessly and fun the month before, and I can't shake the feeling they're only twins so Ryan Coogler's muse could play both the action hero and a vampire. I can't see the film being dramatically better or worse had there just been another actor. It's not a huge deal though, my real issue with the movie is the horror stuff. I know there's the rule about the vampires have to be invited in, but that scene where everyone's standing comfortably in the doorway while exposition is delivered completely undermines any feeling of threat or tension. But even before then, it feels weirdly slow, and although some of the imagery is creepy, I don't find it suspenseful at all. And on rewatch, the horror and vampire aspects feel like a sidetrack from the main story, which I'm actually very interested in. I really enjoy watching these brothers hustling around town, bolstered by this great ensemble and gorgeous cinematography. I very much enjoy the western vibes, the sexiness of it, and boy, the focus on music. The score is amazing. I love that it's technically a musical, and its examination of the transcendent power of music, especially in that scene, is very powerful. There's enough here I'm really taken with to think overall it's a very good film, just not 16 nominations good. But to be honest, people are reading whatever they want into that. Whether it's a mark of immense quality, the Oscars being too political, yada yada yada. But personally, I think it just comes down to the fact the film covers a lot of ground and thus was open to being in lots of categories. Anyway, finishing us off.
And Train Dreams.
I vaguely heard about Train Dreams during festival season, but not enough to expect it to be in the running for Best Picture. And I have to be honest, if I weren't making this video, I probably wouldn't have finished it. AKA, between this and Hamnet, this is probably the last year I watch every nominee. It features a very strong lead performance and beautiful cinematography, but the storytelling did not gel with me at all, telling much of it through narration and ambling along with artsy vignettes much of the rest of the time. It didn't build up the characters enough for me to be moved by the later drama, and so I was bored watching it outside of appreciating the stunning visuals and very cute dogs. And that's that. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I hope you enjoy the remainder of award season, and I shall see you all next time. Goodbye! The Oscar... Hey! These last few... The Oscars have really... I can't do that sentence. Guillermo del Toro's worked out. Shit. The Oscars have really taken a liking. Frankenstein is way too long.